Before we begin, let me ask you something uncomfortable. Have you ever noticed how some men try harder, speak louder, give more, chase longer, and yet the woman in front of them grows colder, quieter, more distant? And then there is another man, who says less, does less, almost seems to do nothing, and still, something in her softens, something bends inward, something opens. Why does that happen? Is it manipulation? Is it luck? Or is there a deeper psychological force at play that most men never see because they are too busy trying to control the outcome instead of understanding the energy behind it? Stay with me, because what you are about to hear may quietly dismantle everything you thought you knew about attraction, power, and emotional surrender, and once you see it, you cannot unsee it. Most men grow up believing that if they say the right words, act confident enough, or apply enough pressure, a woman will eventually give in. That belief doesn't come from cruelty, it comes from fear. The fear of rejection. The fear of not being chosen. The fear that if they stop performing, they will disappear. And here is the dangerous part, this fear silently leaks into their behavior. It turns compliments into transactions. It turns kindness into expectation. It turns desire into tension. And a woman feels this long before she can explain it. Her nervous system reads what his mouth is hiding. But why does her body react before her mind does, and what exactly is it responding to? That question is where the real story begins. There is a psychological truth that rarely makes it into dating advice, because it cannot be sold as a trick. Human beings don't respond to words first, they respond to states. Before logic, before attraction, before desire, the nervous system asks one silent question: am I safe here? And safety has nothing to do with politeness or promises. It has everything to do with emotional coherence. When a man is internally fragmented, thinking one thing, feeling another, wanting something else entirely, his presence creates noise. And noise creates resistance. A woman may smile, engage, even flirt, but inside, something remains guarded. Why does that guard drop in front of some men and harden in front of others, even when those others seem better on paper? That mystery is not romantic, it is neurological. Think about this. Have you ever walked into a room and felt uneasy without knowing why? Or calm, without explanation? That is emotional contagion at work. We absorb each other's inner states constantly. A man who is desperate to be chosen broadcasts instability without realizing it. His attention feels heavy. His interest feels urgent. His silence feels anxious. And a woman's body interprets that urgency as pressure, even if he never pressures her directly. She doesn't resist him consciously, she closes unconsciously. And the tragedy is, he usually mistakes this closure as a signal to try harder, which deepens the cycle. But what breaks that cycle? What causes the opposite reaction, where effortlessness creates closeness instead of distance? Here's where the idea of bending needs to be re-examined. A woman does not bend the way an object bends under force. She bends the way a compass needle bends toward true north, automatically, subtly, without debate. And that movement only happens when the environment around her stops feeling chaotic. When a man's inner world is calm, not empty but grounded, her system senses something rare: regulation. In psychology, we call this co-regulation. The ability of one stable nervous system to calm another. And here is the paradox that terrifies many men: the moment you stop trying to pull her toward you is often the moment she feels safe enough to move closer. Why does letting go create attraction, and why does chasing destroy it? That question holds more power than any technique. Let's talk about presence. Not the motivational version of presence, but the biological one. Presence is not eye contact or listening skills. Presence is when your mind, body, and emotion are in the same place at the same time. Many men are physically present but emotionally elsewhere, thinking about how they are being perceived, whether they are doing enough, whether they might lose her. That split is felt. And when a woman senses that a man is not fully inhabiting himself, she cannot fully relax around him. But when a man is anchored inside his own experience, comfortable with silence, unafraid of pauses, his presence becomes spacious. And in that space, something shifts. But why does silence sometimes feel magnetic instead of awkward? Why does stillness create depth where words fail? Because stillness signals self-trust. And self-trust is the foundation of what we mistakenly call confidence. Real confidence is not projection, it is containment. It is the ability to hold your emotions without leaking them onto others. When a man does not need immediate validation, his interest feels clean. When he desires without desperation, his attention feels safe. And this safety is intoxicating because it is rare. Many men perform confidence, few embody it. And women are not fooled by performance. They respond to congruence. But what happens when confidence is confused with dominance, and how does that confusion quietly sabotage connection? Dominance tries to control the environment. Confidence allows the environment to unfold. A dominant man needs reactions. A confident man allows reactions. One tightens the emotional space, the other expands it. And expansion is where intimacy lives. This is why a woman may feel strangely relaxed around a man who isn't trying to impress her. His lack of urgency gives her nervous system permission to slow down. And when she slows down, she can feel herself. When she can feel herself, she can feel him. But this leads to another question that unsettles many men. If attraction isn't built by doing more, what role does emotional depth play, and why does it seem to unlock something words cannot? Emotional depth is not about sharing feelings constantly or being emotionally expressive in obvious ways. It is about tolerance, the ability to sit with complexity without needing to fix it. Many men are taught to solve problems, not to witness them. But when a woman shares something vulnerable, she is not asking for solutions, she is testing safety. Can this man stay present with discomfort, or will he escape into logic, humor, or reassurance? A man who can stay, without hijacking the moment, creates a powerful signal: your inner world is not too much for me. And that signal does something extraordinary. It lowers defenses. It invites honesty. It creates intimacy. But why is being witnessed often more healing than being helped? Because being witnessed affirms existence. It says, you are allowed to be as you are here. And that permission is deeply erotic, deeply bonding, deeply rare. A woman does not open her deepest layers to a man who rushes her emotions or minimizes them. She opens to the man who can hold emotional weight without collapsing under it. And yet, holding weight requires inner strength, not force. Which brings us to a quality few people talk about honestly: stability. Stability is not rigidity. It is flexibility without fracture. Life will test every man. Through stress, rejection, uncertainty. A woman watches how he moves through these moments, not because she is judging him, but because her nervous system is asking another silent question: what happens when things shake? A man who falls apart internally may hide it well, but the instability leaks. His reactions become unpredictable. His tone shifts. His energy tightens. And unpredictability triggers caution. But a man who can remain emotionally upright under pressure sends a message without words: you can lean here. Why does that message feel so powerful, and why does it make vulnerability possible? Because vulnerability requires a container. And the strongest container is emotional steadiness. When a woman senses that a man will not crumble or retaliate emotionally, she relaxes into her full expression. She laughs louder. She feels deeper. She risks more. And from the outside, it can look like she has bent. But from the inside, she has expanded. She has stopped guarding. And this expansion often reveals another magnetic force, vitality. Vitality is not loud energy. It is not performance. It is aliveness. It is the feeling that a man is engaged with life, not waiting for permission to live it. A man with vitality has movement in his spirit. Curiosity. Purpose. Creative tension. And this vitality is contagious. Around him, others feel more awake, more present, more real. A woman does not want to be the source of a man's energy, she wants to be invited into it. And this is where many men make a fatal mistake, placing the woman at the center of their life force, instead of at its edge. Why does this inversion drain attraction instead of strengthening it? Because desire moves toward fullness, not emptiness. When a man's world is rich, a woman enters it as an addition, not a solution. And that distinction changes everything. She feels chosen, not needed. Desired, not depended upon. And in that emotional climate, something profound happens. She stops bracing. She stops testing. She stops resisting. Not because she has been convinced, but because her body has decided there is no threat. And when there is no threat, there is openness. But openness raises a final, unsettling question. If all of this is internal, what is the real transformation being asked of men? The truth is uncomfortable. This is not about women at all. It never was. The question, when does a woman bend, is a distraction from the real question. Who must I become so that my presence no longer creates pressure? Because pressure is the enemy of intimacy. And freedom is its doorway. A man who cultivates presence, emotional depth, stability, confidence, and vitality is not guaranteed a specific outcome with a specific woman. But he is guaranteed something far more powerful, alignment. And alignment attracts without force. It invites without demand. It opens without asking. And here is the final twist that most people miss. When a woman opens in this way, it does not feel like surrender to her. It feels like safety. It feels like recognition. It feels like coming home to herself in the presence of another. And that is why she does not say, I bent for him. She says nothing at all. She simply stays. She leans in. She reveals more of herself. And from the outside, it looks like magic. But now you know, it is psychology, presence, and inner coherence doing their quiet work. And the danger, this is where the story sharpens, is that once a man understands this intellectually, his mind immediately tries to turn it into another strategy. He starts asking himself, how do I appear calm without actually becoming calm? How do I look confident without confronting my insecurity? How do I signal depth without actually feeling? And the moment those questions arise, the entire process collapses again. Because the nervous system does not respond to appearance, it responds to truth. A woman may not consciously detect the difference, but her body always does. And when a man performs growth instead of living it, something subtle breaks. Why does authenticity feel so rare today, and why does the body detect dishonesty faster than language ever could? This is where many men quietly sabotage themselves. They think attraction is built in moments, one conversation, one date, one gesture, when in reality, attraction is the accumulation of internal states over time. A man who lives in constant tension cannot fake ease for long. A man who avoids his inner chaos cannot suddenly become a place of calm. And here's the part most advice never touches. Women are not evaluating men moment by moment, they are sensing patterns. Patterns of emotional regulation. Patterns of response under pressure. Patterns of presence when nothing is happening. And patterns are impossible to fake indefinitely. So the question becomes frighteningly simple: what patterns are you living inside yourself when no one is watching? There is a psychological phenomenon known as emotional mirroring, where one person unconsciously adjusts their emotional state to match another's. In relationships, women tend to be especially sensitive to this, not because they are weaker, but because their nervous systems are often more finely attuned to relational signals. When a man is internally restless, she feels restless. When he is internally grounded, she feels grounded. And this mirroring happens before attraction, before desire, before choice. It happens at the level of safety. And safety is the soil in which intimacy grows. But here's the unsettling part. Most men never learn how to regulate themselves emotionally. They learn how to suppress, distract, or dominate their emotions instead. What happens when suppression masquerades as strength, and why does it eventually push intimacy away? Suppression creates rigidity. And rigidity creates fragility. A man who suppresses fear does not become fearless, he becomes brittle. Under pressure, he snaps, withdraws, or lashes out. A woman senses this brittleness long before it breaks. She feels that his calm has conditions, that his patience has limits he hasn't acknowledged. And so she remains partially closed, even if she likes him. Not because she is calculating, but because her body is preparing for impact. But when a man has actually faced his fear, felt it, integrated it, understood it, his calm becomes flexible. And flexibility is what allows a woman to relax fully. Why does emotional honesty create more attraction than emotional perfection ever could? Because perfection is distant, and honesty is intimate. A man who is at ease with his own imperfections doesn't ask a woman to complete him. He doesn't lean on her approval to stabilize himself. And that absence of need creates space. Space for her desire. Space for her curiosity. Space for her choice. Choice is the word that changes everything here. Because a woman opening emotionally is not submission, it is selection. And selection only feels good when it is free. So what makes freedom feel possible in connection, instead of threatening? Freedom appears when a man does not collapse if he is not chosen. This is the quiet confidence few people talk about. Not the confidence of certainty, but the confidence of self-containment. A man who knows he will survive rejection does not unconsciously pressure a woman to protect him from it. His interest becomes an invitation, not a demand. And women feel the difference instantly. They feel it in how he listens without leaning forward. In how he desires without chasing. In how he allows silence without filling it. But silence is terrifying for many men. Why does silence feel like loss of control, and why does it often deepen connection instead? Silence removes performance. In silence, there is nothing to hide behind. No clever words. No rehearsed lines. Just presence. And presence reveals truth. A man who can remain comfortable in silence signals that he is comfortable with himself. And when a woman senses that, her own defenses soften. She stops scanning for danger. She stops interpreting. She starts feeling. And feeling is where openness lives. But openness requires another quality that is often misunderstood: direction. Direction is not control. It is orientation. A man with direction knows where he is going in life, not in rigid detail, but in essence. He has values that guide him. A sense of movement that is not dependent on external validation. And this direction creates psychological safety because it reduces uncertainty. A woman does not need a man to have all the answers, she needs to feel that he is not drifting. Drifting creates anxiety. Orientation creates trust. But why does direction feel calming even when the future is unknown? Because direction suggests intention. And intention suggests reliability. A man who lives intentionally responds rather than reacts. He chooses rather than panics. And in moments of emotional intensity, this difference matters more than words ever could. When conflict arises, and it always does, a woman watches closely. Not to test him, but to understand him. Does he become defensive, or does he become curious? Does he collapse, or does he stay engaged? These moments decide everything. But here's the paradox. Many men think attraction is built during harmony, when in reality, it is often built during tension. Why does conflict reveal more truth than comfort ever can? Because conflict removes masks. Under stress, patterns surface. And when a man can stay emotionally present during disagreement, without shutting down or overpowering, the woman's trust deepens. She realizes that intimacy with him will not cost her safety. That her emotions will not destroy the bond. And this realization unlocks something primal, the willingness to be fully seen. But being fully seen is terrifying. It requires courage from both sides. And courage does not arise from pressure, it arises from trust. At this point, something shifts. The woman no longer wonders whether she is safe. Her body already knows. She no longer evaluates his words. She feels his consistency. And from the outside, it may look like she has softened or given in. But inside, something else is happening. She is reclaiming parts of herself she usually keeps guarded. Her playfulness returns. Her vulnerability surfaces. Her emotional range expands. This is not submission. This is expression. And expression only occurs where there is no fear. So the final question becomes unavoidable. If women do not bend under force, why do men keep trying to apply it? Because force feels faster. And growth feels slow. Manipulation promises control. Self-mastery demands patience. Many men would rather learn how to push the right buttons than sit alone with their own discomfort. But the uncomfortable truth is this: every attempt to control another person is a confession of inner instability. And every act of self-regulation is an invitation to intimacy. Women may not articulate this, but they live it. Their attraction follows nervous system logic, not verbal logic. And once you understand this, the entire dynamic shifts. The man who becomes emotionally grounded does not need to ask when a woman will bend. He stops thinking in terms of bending altogether. His focus turns inward, not in narcissism, but in responsibility. Who am I being? What am I transmitting? What emotional climate do I create simply by existing? And when those questions are lived rather than analyzed, attraction becomes a byproduct, not a pursuit. Because the deepest truth is this: when a woman opens, she is not responding to a man's effort. She is responding to his state of being. And being cannot be faked, rushed, or borrowed. It must be cultivated. Slowly. Honestly. Quietly. And that cultivation changes more than attraction, it changes the man himself. And perhaps that is the real reason this question has haunted men for so long. Not because they want women to bend, but because, somewhere beneath the confusion, they sense that something in them must soften first.